folks, and welcome back to another episode of your Brains Coach podcast. My name is Angela Shurina. I'm your host, I'm your Brains Coach, and it is my job here to bring to you all the recent cutting-edge, best brain-body tools so you could make better decisions, so you could feel, look, and do your best. Folks, it's everything about the brain. It's everything in our brain. You know this listening to this podcast that when you get better at operating your own brain, everything else in life gets so much easier. The other day I was listening to a podcast with David Goggins, actually Andrew Huberman talking about David Goggins, this popular Navy SEAL. If you don't know him, he's also an author, like a great media person. Just Google him, David Goggins, and also amazing book that I read with Jesse Itzler. He's an entrepreneur who invited David Goggins to live with him, and the name of the book is Living with the SEAL. So anyhow, Andrew Huberman was talking about David Goggins and how David Goggins, really mastered this ability to get brain's signals. Specifically, he was talking about fear, and translate it into what fear was made us do. What am I talking about here is, for example, they invited David Goggins to the laboratory to study fear. And there was virtual reality simulation. And it was Shark Tank, I believe. Maybe there were several experiences. But when the researchers asked people to go through experience, they're like, who's first? And before that, they asked David Goggins, how do you feel about sharks? And he's like, I don't like them. He's very no bullshit person. Doesn't talk a lot. They're like, okay, we're going to put you through this experience. And through the experience, they realized that what was so special about David Goggins, and perhaps why he achieved what he achieved, and he, has this whole philosophy, and why he got through all the experiences in his life and became one of the most awarded Navy SEALs out there. So what they learned about him during the experience is that he learned how to use this fear setting in the brain for what it was designed to do, for action. So when he was going through experience through sharks, he would, get through experience, and whenever he started feeling fear, he would just take action. And I don't know exactly how everything was measured. They didn't go into the details on that YouTube video, but they would then started talking about that fear, or a lot of emotions that our brain gives us, are designed to produce certain actions. They're kind of like shortcuts of our brain, feel this, do that. But instead of that, in a lot of us, we get stuck. We're like, I feel this way, what does it mean, etc. Whereas when you really start understanding your emotions, and what they were designed to do, you start understanding that the answer is not in the thinking or self-analysis. It's actually in the action. Your brain wants you to do something, and that's what you should be curious about. Why does my brain want me to do that? And how to solve perhaps the same problem without doing that. Maybe it's, not such a great mechanism to solve this problem, but feelings are designed to make us take action fast. And once you understand what emotions, your specific emotions, tell you every single time, you'll start understanding how to actually address that instead of, self-analysis and thinking that there is something wrong with you or maybe with your life. Why I was telling you that is David Goggins, he understood what his brain was trying him to do. And he did that. And he created ultimate success in his life. He achieved everything that he wanted in life. And that's what the brain is designed for, to help us achieve everything that we want. But because we were not given this brain's user manual, we get stuck. And this podcast and my whole life's mission is to help people to get those tools, that user manual that we've not been given. I'm learning with you. I'm going through experience with you folks. It's just I study and I read and communicate with experts a lot more and do a lot more thinking in this area. And I'm also exposed to so many more different, scientists. Like when a scientist studies a specific area, it basically takes his whole life. And I, as not a scientist, a researcher, but more of a journalist, of an adventurer, I have this benefit of learning about the work of scientists all around the world, and then putting that into practice and combining all this knowledge in all these different ways that very often even scientists, very niche scientists themselves, are not aware of. And so this is what I'm giving to you here, all this analysis and thinking and what I put in practice in my life and with my clients. That being said, folks, this is a long preview, but you clicked on this podcast to listen about how to get unstuck. And the podcast was inspired by another podcast, Hidden Brain, and it's one of the best produced podcasts out there by the guy who is like really great awarded journalist, and he's been doing this podcast Hidden Brain for quite a while. And it's a joy, it's a pleasure to listen to this podcast, and they always have like the best scientists and researchers and the most interesting stories. And yeah, it's just a joy to listen. If you don't know, if you haven't heard about Hidden Brain podcast before, then please go give them a listen. And of course, as usual, I listen to a podcast and then I add additional knowledge and my perspective and examples to make it more practical and digestible for you folks. They were talking yesterday on Hidden Brain podcast with Adam Alter, and he's the author of the book that recently came out, Anatomy of a Breakthrough, How to Get Unstuck When It Matters Most. And I haven't read the book yet, but it's definitely on my list. So throughout the podcast, they were talking about why people get stuck and why we often feel like we're stuck and like the rest of the world is not, and what to do about that. Well, first of all, when we feel we're stuck and the rest of the world doesn't go through this experience, it's totally untrue. It's a universal experience, feeling stuck when we don't see progress or when the progress doesn't meet our expectations. There was a very interesting thought, and it's based on research on really good human data, that we feel stuck not necessarily because we are stuck, but because the rate of the progress doesn't meet our expectations. Meaning, progress is not linear. We just expect it to be linear. We expect to see progress, if not every day, then like every week, every month. But this is not how life is. You usually make a lot of progress or some progress, and then it kind of stops for whichever reason, and then you get progress again. This is how life is. And actually in Eastern philosophy, in Eastern culture, they say it like that. Like life goes through cycles of activity and no activity, whereas we in the West seem to be thinking that life has to progress linearly, meaning we gotta have some progress all the time if we put in the action. And then they were talking about athletes, how when you start training, for example, in any discipline, you get through a lot of progress, but then you get stuck putting in the same work. It's kind of like your whole body, muscles, everything adjusts. So in order to make progress again and get unstuck, you have to change things, almost like flip them on their head, or just put a lot more pressure or stress, at least for a while, to get yourself unstuck and get to the next level. So that might feel like, like I'm stuck. Why am I stuck? But it's actually, again, universal experience. So on this podcast, of course, they also gave a lot of examples how to get unstuck and how people in different disciplines also get unstuck, from athletes to, for example, writers or musicians, because there is also like writer's block and probably musician's block and artist's block, right? When you create something, and I've been feeling actually quite stuck with my own content, and now I understand why. So that's the beauty of listening to smarter people, to researchers. You're like, this is why, and this is what I should do. So with writer's block and musician's block, and whenever you feel like you're stuck with creating any sort of content or original work, what happens is they say it happens to every single artistic, even the most prolific person out there will feel stuck inside. And the way out is to start producing more content, but not focusing on quality, because very often we feel stuck that we don't produce good stuff, but we can always produce bad stuff. We can always produce bad first drafts of writing, music, blogs, videos, etc. So the most prolific musicians, artists, writers, they actually figured out that in order to get to the good stuff without blockages and feeling stuck, you just have to go through a lot of bad stuff, and you always just show up. You create, you write that many words, or I don't know, create that many videos, and you just put them out there. And then eventually good stuff comes out. And for me, the practical takeaway is keep producing stuff, even though you feel like it's not good enough. And for example, when it comes to writing my blogs that I actually haven't done in like 2 months because I felt like I didn't have anything good to say. So when it comes to blog writing, I'm like, okay, I'm just going to leave an hour for just taking the bad stuff out. Instead of putting myself on a sharp deadline, I would give myself time to write the bad stuff out. And usually how it would happen, actually during the writing, I would start thinking about the good stuff. But unfortunately, I cannot get the good stuff until I start writing anything. So that's the first takeaway for me and for you folks. If you're stuck with producing any sort of content or work, just start. And be prepared to go through a lot of bad stuff meaning that you don't like and probably also other people won't like that much. And then eventually good stuff comes out. And what researchers show and tell us is that until we go through this practice, good stuff might never come out. So get back to writing, creating, music, paintings, presentations, or whatever it is you create and you feel stuck with. For me, it's going to be blog writing. On Monday, I'm going to sit down, give myself enough time, and I'm going to go and write whatever. So this is like how to get unstuck in content creation. Or anything really. Just let the bad stuff come out by taking action and producing that bad stuff. There was also a musician that they discussed who was saying that every day I show up and I just get through the bad stuff. And then it's kind of like having a bottle of liquids and they are layered. And before you can get to the bottom layer, you have to pour out all the layers that are on top. So that's kind of like with creation of content or any original work. You have to pour all these layers out before you get to that good stuff. The second concept that I'm also definitely going to be applying more in my life is that, and it actually so applicable to business journey. So the second piece of advice is always take action, not think about how to get unstuck. If you're truly stuck, like I felt for the past couple of months in my business, to be honest, for the past couple of years, I don't feel I made that much progress. And so they say if you truly feel unstuck and you don't know what to do, you sit there and you just don't know what to do. What's the best next step? For me, it was so many options. I just don't know which one to dedicate attention and effort and energy. And obviously there is nothing that will guarantee you success on any of them. And so it keeps you paralyzed. You have these options, and yes, people succeeded with all of these options, but which will work for you? And when you feel like they all kind of seem good, but they also can fail, all of them. And they also will take time and resources. So what do I actually choose? And so that kept me stuck. And what the researchers say, it doesn't matter then. Just take one and give it everything you got. Just start taking action. Don't even expect any success. Just start consistently taking action like your ass is on fire. And that's when the solutions and opportunities and the thoughts about what is the right thing will pop up. So instead of sitting and thinking and planning through the solution, just take a bunch of action with no expectation. And of course, learn through the journey. See, Marie Forleo, she is a creative coach and she's a business coach. And she has the saying, follow the money. So take action, take a bunch of projects on and start taking massive actions, and then see where the money flows and what people are ready to pay for. I'm specifically talking about business, and that's going to be a thing. And to be honest, when I get to help a lot more people, and usually get to help a lot more people when you're getting paid for that, that's when it feels the best. And it's not so much even about money. It's about just being useful in other people's life and helping them to advance on their journey. But the takeaway for business folks out there, for entrepreneurs, take action. When you're not sure, just take action and take massive action and learn and adapt and adjust. And when you hit something, like you have something you like and people are ready to pay for that, that's where you go. Follow the money and take massive action. Don't try to think the way through it like I did for God knows how much time, I do take action, but then I spend so much time thinking about, what's the next best step. And then this step doesn't work and you're like, why did I spend so much time thinking about that in the first place? So take action. And the last, but I definitely believe it's not least, because how you feel will define what actions you take and what results you ultimately get. So I'm going to sip some water. You do know, by the way, folks, if you are in any sort of communication, business, or arena, staying hydrated actually changes the way your voice cord works. Basically, how you sound will change based on how well hydrated you are. So keep yourself hydrated if you create videos, if you do podcasts, or before interviews. Also, when you talk, you use a lot more water, so you need to drink more. And you might have noticed that, a lot of speakers when they're on stage, etc., they drink water almost like constantly, because you need that in order to keep talking and have your voice apparatus working right. That's a little bit of a side note. Drink your water. The third concept and a tool in your toolkit for getting unstuck, based on research, again, pick up the book, also Anatomy of a Breakthrough by Adam Alter. He's, by the way, a psychologist in the NYU, New York University. So check his book out. I'm definitely picking this up. So the third strategy has to do with motivation and feeling powerful and confident. You know what's the worst thing that getting stuck for a while does to you? It demotivates you because you don't see any progress, and your brain doesn't release dopamine, this molecule of motivation, when you see no progress, no rewards. And when you get this feeling, you start feeling frustrated, and also you start feeling less and less confident. Like, I don't know what to do and nothing seems to work, and that conversation. And that happens because your brain chemistry literally changes. The dopamine, it plummets. And it's actually a good thing because it keeps you frustrated. And unless you start consuming some social media, a lot of food, some drugs that's gonna make you feel better without action. So unless you do that, that's why it's actually bad to have our consumption culture drugifying a lot of experiences and taking that frustration away without any action. But again, that's a story for another story. So you feel frustrated, you lose your confidence, you lose your motivation, and then it becomes harder to take action. That's the worst thing about being stuck for a while. So what can you do about that? They also have solution. On Hidden Brain, Adam Alter was talking about why so many people start pursuing personal goals that they have almost total control over. You have, total control almost over nothing, but in those personal pursuits, you have more control than in other areas of your life, even in business, where you can feel stuck. So what I'm talking about here is getting ready to run a marathon. By the way, folks, if you meet or if you talk to your friends, if you have friends who decided for whichever reason, even though they're not athletes, to run marathons, to go on some sort of fitness challenge, maybe CrossFit challenge, I just met a bunch of CrossFit people, or decide to climb a mountain, or decide to change their body weight and get six-pack abs and get really ripped. When your friends are in that zone, realize that a lot of them would do that naturally out of frustration, that they feel stuck in other areas of their life. We human beings, we need to feel like we're moving somewhere, like we are progressing, that we are not stuck, that our life has movement, momentum, meaning. So when we get no progress, we lose that meaning. And it feels very not good. You lose your confidence, you lose your motivation, you feel not that great about everything else in your life. It's like, I'm stuck, what's wrong with me? You start having this conversation. I'm not saying, always listen to what's happening in your head, because that's a signal of you need to change something. You need to work on things. So listen to that. Don't believe that. Just understand that this is a signal. You need to address something in your life. Look at that in that frame. This is telling me something that I need to figure out or work or realize, or, maybe that's a part of my past that I need to work through, talk through. So now it's in a more positive frame. But anyhow, so why do people start working on those personal goals? Sometimes they seem crazy, like I'm going to go to Himalaya, so I'm going to run like a 100-mile marathon, because people want to get that confidence back, that they can do things, they can overcome challenges, that it's not about them, but it's, something just in life that they haven't just quite figured out. And people start pursuing those personal goals. For me right now, I also decided, I'm going to get into the best shape fitness-wise that I would decided to do. And I put in place on my schedule workouts, and I adjusted my nutrition to get really like lean, ripped, and perhaps even do the photo shoot. But the thing is, you want to get that dopamine back. And when you make progress, when you put in the effort, when you do the workouts, when you adjust your nutrition and you follow the plan, you start seeing progress, and that gives you that dopamine back, that confidence back, that in fact, when you take action, you can change things, you will change things, and you're strong enough to go through the tough moments, workouts, being on some nutrition plan that you have to really watch, like what you eat, sometimes going through periods of hunger here and there. That requires like courage and work, and it's not that easy, it's challenging, but you still do that and you see progress, and that starts your dopamine flow, that molecule of motivation and drive. And also very often it contributes to your confidence, and it gives you this feeling of being powerful and capable. And that's why people start again pursuing those goals that they have more control over, and why it's also important to actually do that. And again, Adam Alter actually talked about this on the podcast, that if you truly feel stuck, maybe get a personal goal, and it doesn't actually have to be fitness. It might be some hobby where you can make progress in, that is also challenging. So get some personal goal that you have a lot more control over, and with effort put in, you will get progress. So get some goal like that and work on that consistently. And it's going to give you the feeling of progress. You're actually going to get progress. It's going to give you dopamine flow back. And with that, you're going to feel motivated, driven, empowered, confident to take action in all the other areas. And actually, it has a bonus that usually pursuing new area of mastery, so to speak, you start getting ideas for all the other areas of your life, business, relationships. So it literally gets you unstuck on so many different levels. And that the third piece of advice, we started with content creation and how you need to get the bad stuff out before you get to the good stuff. And it's true for every single prolific person you admire out there. We talked about how in business, if you're feeling stuck and you don't know what to do, there are just, so many options and you're just not sure. And everyone tells you what to do, but, you also probably have a history of your own things that didn't work. So the best thing there is to just take action and then perhaps follow the money, because in business, you gotta make profits, and unless it's not profit, and you gotta make some other progress. But anyhow, just take action. Don't think about the perfect solution or planning it all out. Mike Tyson, I think, said it. Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face, meaning until you meet the reality, everyone has a plan. But unfortunately, the plan doesn't exactly work in reality as it does in your head. So take action. And then number 3, start pursuing a personal project. a goal. That can be fitness, that can be anything else, but where you will start seeing progress with the effort and energy put in. Start pursuing that to get your motivation back. Like literally, you're going to start getting dopamine that's going to make you feel motivated, to get your confidence, your powerful feeling back. And then you'll also start getting ideas and transfer that motivation and drive into all the other areas of your life where you are stuck, like maybe your business, relationships, etc. Speaking of personal goal, we actually are starting next week a cohort of health 360 and high performance productivity coaching. It's a group coaching. We're going to start it next week. So high performance health 360 reset and productivity for entrepreneurs, executive leaders. So we're going to start this next week, but this week, today, 6 p.m. our Berlin time, it's 12 p.m. Eastern New York time, and it's 9 a.m. Pacific. We have a 30-minute audio pajamas friendly event on LinkedIn that I'm going to post on my Instagram. Also, LinkedIn, Angela Shurina, Instagram, Angela Brain Body Coach. The link to the event is also going to be in the show notes, so check it out. Folks, the event is only 30 minutes. And what does it have to do with everything that I said about getting unstuck? Well, on this podcast, I'm going to give you the 80-20 of health. The 80-20 that you need to put in place in your habits to get into high energy state consistently. And high energy levels is the currency of everything. If you don't have energy consistently every single day, you're going to feel like procrastinating. You're going to feel demotivated. You're not going to feel like taking action. And of course, it's going to stall progress in all of the areas of your life. So you have to have a lot of energy if you want to lead, change things, and achieve personal excellence. And on this audio event in 30 minutes, I'm going to give you the 80-20 of sleep, of nutrition, and there's going to be a piece on brain nutrition, of stress management, of exercise, and mindset management. So join the event. The link is in the show notes. And again, it's audio only. You don't have to dress up or show up, but it's also going to be a conversation. So for the 30 minutes, I'm going to present, and then 15 minutes, you can come on stage, raise your hand. It's kind of like Clubhouse. And I'm going to invite you to the stage, and you can also ask questions or tell me your opinion, something from your personal experience. It's going to be an interactive event. It's going to be a conversation, not just something that you passively consume. You can do that too, but you can also join the conversation. I believe I have like 65 people signing up. Not sure how many, show up. It's always like a little bit of a mystery for me still, but the link is in the show notes, audio only. It's on LinkedIn. All you have to do is click the link when the show begins, so to speak, and to learn the 80-20. And that can be your personal goal, to put the schedule based on this knowledge in place, and it's going to be 80-20. So it's not going to take a lot of time. It's designed to be very effective and designed to take very little time, the least amount of time possible. So you're going to take the system. Your challenge is going to be to put it into place, to do it consistently and see results in all these different areas, like your energy levels or your fitness levels or your sleep quality. And that can be your personal goal that can get you the feeling of motivation, of drive, of empowerment that you can use to get unstuck in whatever area you feel stuck at. And just remember, folks, as the concluding thought, as a parting thought, remember that feeling stuck, it's kind of part of human experience. So you're not alone. We all feel stuck at some point or many points. And also look out for your friends when they start getting into these goals of either running a marathon or climbing a mountain or changing their, body weight or whatever, those seemingly crazy personal goals that make like no sense. Just realize they might be using, sometimes they don't even realize it, as a way to get to that feeling of being unstuck and feeling back their powerful state and drive and motivations to get unstuck in some areas. So if you're stuck, you're not alone, and you know that there are tools that other people use, and it's universal experience. And I hope you learned very cool tools on this podcast today. I definitely learned quite a few, and gonna approach things differently now with more confidence, knowing that this is actually how it works for humanity. So let's all do better. Don't forget, folks, the link to the event, 80/20 of health, high performance health, and productivity. The link is in the show notes, 12 p.m. Eastern. And it's 30-minute audio only, pajamas friendly. So check us out, get on stage, get the conversation going as well. And don't forget, folks, the most important thing to do for me as a thank you, if you learned something very useful and you had your aha moments, share this podcast with other people. Let other people to get their ahas and improve their life. That's the the coolest thing you can do for me as the host of your Brains Coach podcast. And that being said, I'm going to let you go. Get unstuck, folks. Take action. Get the bad stuff out to get the good stuff. If you have any thoughts, reach out. Angela@brainbreakthroughcoach.com. I'll see you at the event tonight. Or if you are in the US, it's going to be your morning or afternoon. And have an awesome day. Till then, take action. Get unstuck. Get your power back and change the world.